Millionaire invites black housekeeper to golf to mock her, but when she arrives, everyone falls in love. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Bradley Whitmore stood in front of his mansion's giant mirror, adjusting his designer golf shirt. At 45, he had everything money could buy: the biggest house in Palm Crest, a fleet of luxury cars, and more wealth than he could spend in 3 lifetimes. But what he loved most was showing off his success to others, especially those he considered beneath him. "Mr. Whitmore, your breakfast is ready," called Leona Ellis from the dining room. She'd been his housekeeper for 5 years now, putting up with his constant jabs and condescending remarks to support her son Marcus's college dreams. Bradley walked into the dining room, barely glancing at the perfectly prepared meal. "You know, Leona, I'm hosting a little golf tournament at the country club today. All the important people in town will be there." He paused, a smirk forming on his face. "Why don't you join us?" Leona looked up from where she was arranging his napkin, catching the mockery in his eyes. She knew exactly what he was doing, setting her up to be the butt of another joke for his rich friends. But something in her had finally had enough. "Actually, Mr. Whitmore, I think I will," she said, her voice steady and clear. "What time should I be there?" Bradley nearly choked on his coffee. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. "You're serious? Well, tournament starts at noon, but do you even have proper golf attire? The club has very strict rules, you know." "Don't you worry about that, Mr. Whitmore, I'll figure it out." Leona's quiet confidence made him uncomfortable, but he couldn't back down now without losing face. "Well then, this should be interesting." Bradley couldn't hide his amusement. In his mind, this would be the perfect opportunity to put Leona in her place once and for all. What Bradley didn't know was that Leona had worked at that very same country club during college, carrying bags and cleaning clubs. She'd spent countless early mornings practicing her swing before the members arrived, taught by old Joe, the groundskeeper who'd taken her under his wing. After leaving Bradley's house, Leona called her friend Maria, who worked at the local department store. "Remember that favor you owe me? I need to borrow something." An hour later, Leona stood in Maria's apartment, trying on a pristine white golf outfit that had been returned to the store. It fit perfectly, making her look like she belonged on a magazine cover. "Girl, you're really going to do this?" Maria asked, helping Leona adjust the collar. "That man is nothing but trouble. Someone needs to teach Bradley Whitmore that money isn't everything," Leona replied, thinking of all the times she'd had to hold her tongue while he made his snide remarks. "And today, that someone is going to be me." Back at his mansion, Bradley was on the phone with his friend Richard, laughing about his plan. "You won't believe what my housekeeper agreed to. This is going to be the highlight of the tournament. Make sure everyone knows to be there by noon. They won't want to miss this show." "Isn't this a bit much even for you?" Richard asked, but Bradley brushed off his concern. "Please, she needs to learn her place. These people nowadays, they forget who's really in charge. A little public humiliation will do her good." As noon approached, Bradley arrived at the Palm Crest Country Club in his Ferrari, tossing his keys to the valet with barely a glance. His usual crowd was gathering: doctors, lawyers, business owners, all part of his carefully curated social circle. They were already sipping champagne and warming up their swings. "Just wait," he told them, checking his watch. "My housekeeper is going to try to play golf with us today. This is going to be better than any comedy show." But when Leona walked onto the course at exactly noon, the laughter Bradley expected didn't come. Instead, a hush fell over the crowd. She looked elegant and confident in her white outfit, carrying herself with the grace of someone who belonged there. Elena Vargas, a wealthy philanthropist new to their circle, was the first to approach her. "Welcome. I don't think we've met. I'm Elena. Leona Ellis, pleased to meet you." Leona's genuine smile and warm handshake made Elena beam. Bradley watched in growing confusion as Leona easily mingled with his friends, her natural charm and wit drawing them in. This wasn't how things were supposed to go at all, but the real shock was still to come. When Leona stepped up to the first tee and took her stance, everything Bradley thought he knew was about to change forever. The morning sun caught the determination in her eyes as she addressed the ball, and in that moment, Bradley Whitmore had no idea that his perfect little plan was about to backfire in ways he could never have imagined. His carefully constructed world of privilege and power was about to be turned upside down by the very woman he'd tried to humiliate. The first section of this story sets up a battle of pride versus dignity, of assumptions versus reality. But more than that, it marks the beginning of a journey that would change not just Bradley and Leona, but the entire community of Palm Crest. Sometimes the greatest transformations start with a single moment of defiance, and on this sunny day at the Palm Crest Country Club, that moment had arrived. Leona took her first swing, and the sound of the club hitting the ball silenced everyone on the course. The ball soared through the air in a perfect arc, landing right in the middle of the fairway, farther than any of Bradley's friends had managed to hit. "Beginner's luck," Bradley muttered, but his face had turned slightly pale. He hadn't expected this at all. Eleanor Vargas clapped enthusiastically. "That was amazing! Where did you learn to play like that?" Before Leona could answer, Bradley cut in. "Let's not get ahead of ourselves. One good drive doesn't make a golfer." He stepped up to the tee, determined to put on a show. His shot sliced right, landing in the rough. "Would you like some tips on your form, Mr. Whitmore?" Leona asked innocently. A few people in the crowd chuckled, making Bradley's ears turn red. As they moved through the course, it became clear that Leona wasn't just lucky, she was skilled. Her shots were consistent, her putting was precise, and she seemed to know exactly how to read the greens. Between shots, she chatted easily with Bradley's friends, sharing simple stories about her life that somehow made everyone feel at ease. "My son Marcus is studying engineering," she told Elena as they walked to the next hole. "He's always been good with numbers, just like his father was." "Was?" Eleanor asked gently. "He passed away when Marcus was 10. That's why I started working at the country club back then. Had to make ends meet somehow." Leona lined up her shot as she spoke, sinking another perfect putt. Bradley, walking a few steps behind, found himself listening intently. He'd never bothered to learn anything about Leona's past, despite her working in his home for years. "You worked here?" Richard asked, surprised. "For 3 years. Old Joe, the groundskeeper, taught me everything I know about golf. He said I had a natural talent." Leona's voice was filled with warmth as she remembered. "He passed away last year, but I'll never forget his kindness." Bradley felt something unfamiliar stirring in his chest. Was it shame? He pushed the feeling aside, focusing instead on his growing frustration. By the 9th hole, Leona was actually leading the tournament. "This is ridiculous," he snapped, loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is supposed to be a serious game, not some kind of charity event." Elena turned to him sharply. "The only thing ridiculous here is your attitude, Bradley. Leona is playing by the rules and beating you fair and square." More of his friends nodded in agreement, making Bradley feel increasingly isolated. This woman, his housekeeper, was somehow turning his own social circle against him. "Fine," he said, his voice tight with anger. "Let's make this interesting. The next hole, you and me, Leona. If you win, I'll donate $50,000 to any charity you choose. If I win, you resign. Effective immediately." A hush fell over the group. Eleanor stepped forward to protest, but Leona held up her hand. "I accept," she said calmly. "And when I win, I want that money to go to the Palm Crest Youth Sports Program. There are a lot of kids in this town who could use access to sports like golf." Bradley laughed coldly. "You're pretty confident for someone who cleans houses for a living. And you're pretty arrogant for someone about to lose to his housekeeper," Leona replied, her voice steady, but her eyes flashing with determination. The 10th hole was the most challenging on the course, a long par 5 with water hazards on both sides. Bradley took his shot first, driving the ball straight down the middle of the fairway. He turned to Leona with a smug smile. "Beat that," he challenged. Leona stepped up to the tee. The crowd held their breath. In that moment, she thought about Marcus, about old Joe, about every person who'd ever been looked down on by people like Bradley Whitmore. Her drive was perfect, long, straight, and true. It sailed past Bradley's ball, drawing gasps from the spectators, but the hole wasn't over yet. Bradley's second shot landed in a bunker. His third shot went over the green. By the time he finally got the ball in the hole, he'd taken 7 strokes. Leona, meanwhile, played with the precision of a professional. When her final putt rolled smoothly into the cup for a birdie, the crowd erupted in cheers. Everyone except Bradley rushed to congratulate her. "This isn't possible," Bradley sputtered. "You must have cheated somehow." "The only person you're cheating is yourself, Mr. Whitmore," Leona said quietly. "With all your money and privilege, you never learned the most important lesson in life. Character matters more than status." Eleanor stepped forward, putting an arm around Leona's shoulders. "You know what? I'm going to match Bradley's 50,000. It's time this town had a proper youth sports program." Bradley watched in disbelief as his friends gathered around Leona, praising her skill and grace under pressure. This was supposed to be his moment to put her in her place. Instead, She had shown him up in every possible way. As the group headed back to the clubhouse for drinks, Bradley stayed behind, staring at the 18th hole where his perfect plan had fallen apart. For the first time in years, he felt completely alone. But something else was happening too, something he couldn't quite understand. Every time he thought about Leona's quiet confidence, her skill, her grace under pressure, he felt that strange stirring in his chest again. That evening, as he sat alone in his massive house, Bradley couldn't stop thinking about everything he'd learned about Leona that day. The widowed mother putting her son through college, the woman who'd learned golf from a kindly old groundskeeper, the person who'd shown more class in victory than he had ever shown in his entire privileged life. The phone rang. It was Richard. That was quite a day, his friend said. You know, Bradley, maybe it's time to admit that you've misjudged Leona. And maybe it's time to take a good look at yourself too. Bradley hung up without responding, but he knew Richard was right. The question was, what was he going to do about it? As the sun set over Palm Crest, both Bradley and Leona lay awake in their very different homes, knowing that tomorrow would bring changes neither of them could predict. The game of golf was over, but a new game was just beginning, one where the stakes were much higher than money or pride. The morning after the golf tournament, Bradley sat at his dining room table staring at his untouched breakfast. The house felt strangely empty. Leona hadn't come in to work. He'd half expected her to show up anyway, despite his challenge at the golf course. The thought of her actually quitting made his stomach twist uncomfortably. The doorbell rang, interrupting his thoughts. It was Elena Vargas, and she didn't look happy. "We need to talk," she said, walking past him into the house. "What you did yesterday was cruel, Bradley, but you can still fix this." Bradley ran his hand through his hair, looking tired. "Fix what? She won, didn't she? She'll get her money for the youth program." "This isn't about the money," Eleanor snapped. "It's about how you treat people. Leona is one of the most genuine, hard-working people I've ever met, and you tried to humiliate her in front of everyone." Before Bradley could respond, his phone buzzed. It was his sister, Catherine, who ran the family's charitable foundation. "Bradley, what were you thinking?" Catherine's voice crackled through the speaker. "The video of yesterday's tournament is all over social media. Do you know how this makes our family look?" "What video?" Bradley's head snapped up. Someone had recorded his behavior at the golf course. The cruel comments, the unfair challenge, everything. The comments were brutal, calling him everything from a rich bully to worse names. "The foundation's donors are upset," Catherine continued. "We're supposed to be helping the community, not antagonizing it. You need to make this right and fast." After hanging up, Bradley turned to find Eleanor watching him with a mixture of sympathy and frustration. "You know," she said softly, "I think you're not really the person you pretend to be. I've seen how you help local businesses, how you anonymously pay for kids' college tuitions. Why do you work so hard to make people think you're heartless?" Her words hit him harder than he expected. The truth was he'd spent so many years building his tough, arrogant image that he'd almost forgotten who he really was. Meanwhile, across town, Leona sat in her modest apartment with her son Marcus, who had come home from college after seeing the viral video. "Mom, you were amazing!" Marcus beamed with pride. "But are you really going to quit? You shouldn't let him force you out." Leona sighed, thinking about the complicated emotions she'd seen flash across Bradley's face yesterday. You know what's strange? For a moment there, when he realized he'd lost, he looked just like a lost little boy. All that arrogance just disappeared. The phone rang. It was Elena. "Leona, we're having an emergency meeting about the youth sports program. Can you come to my office? And please, hear me out before you make any decisions about quitting." When Leona arrived at Elena's office downtown, she was surprised to find several prominent community leaders there, including Catherine Whitmore, Bradley's sister. "We've been trying to start a comprehensive youth sports program for years," Catherine explained, "but we needed the right person to run it. After seeing that video, our board unanimously agreed. We want you to be the program director, Leona." Leona sat there stunned. "Me? But I don't have any experience running a program like this." "You have everything that matters," Elena insisted. "You understand both the country club world and the needs of working families. Plus, you're an excellent teacher. I saw how you helped some of the others with their golf swings yesterday." As they discussed the details, Bradley was driving aimlessly around town, wrestling with his conscience. He found himself parking outside the old country club where Leona had learned to play. Getting out of his car, he walked to the groundskeeper's shed. An elderly man was working there, trimming some tools. "Can I help you?" "Did you know Joe, the old groundskeeper?" Bradley asked. The man's face softened. "Joe was my brother, passed away last year. Could you tell me about him? About when he taught Leona Ellis to play golf?" For the next hour, Bradley sat on a weathered bench, listening to stories about how Joe had spotted Leona's natural talent, how she'd practice at dawn before starting her shift, how she'd never once complained about the hard work. "Joe always said she had something special," the man said. "Not just talent, but heart. He said she played golf the way she lived life, with grace and determination." Bradley thought about his own life, about how everything had been handed to him. He'd never had to show the kind of determination Leona had. Back at Elena's office, the meeting was wrapping up when Bradley walked in, looking unusually humble. "I'd like to speak to Leona," he said quietly. "Alone, if possible." The others filed out, leaving Bradley and Leona facing each other in the elegant office. "I was wrong," Bradley said, the words feeling foreign in his mouth. "Not just about yesterday, but about everything. I've spent years looking down on people, thinking my money made me better. But you showed me what real class looks like." Leona studied his face, seeing genuine regret there. "What do you want, Mr. Whitmore?" "First, I want you to keep your job, if you're willing. Second, I want to double the donation to the youth program. And third," he paused, struggling with the words, "I want to learn from you." "Learn what?" "How to be a better person. How to see people for who they really are. Will you help me?" Before Leona could answer, Eleanor burst back into the office. "Turn on the news, quickly!" The local news was running a story that would change everything. Bradley's biggest business rival, James Morrison, was claiming that the viral golf video was just the tip of the iceberg. He was about to release evidence of years of unethical business practices by the Whitmore family. "He's lying," Bradley said immediately, but his face had gone pale. Though he might have documents that could be misinterpreted, Leona looked between Bradley and the TV, realizing that her decision about his request for help had just become much more complicated. The man who had tried to humiliate her might now need her more than ever, but could she trust his sudden change of heart? As the news anchor continued to talk about the developing scandal, Bradley, Leona, and Elena shared a look, each knowing that their lives were about to become intensely intertwined in ways none of them could have predicted just 2 days ago. The setting sun cast long shadows through Eleanor's office windows, marking the end of another day in Palm Crest. But this was just the beginning of a story that would test the limits of forgiveness, redemption, and the unexpected ways that love can transform even the hardest of hearts. The next morning, Palm Crest was buzzing with rumors about the Whitmore family scandal. Bradley sat in his home office, surrounded by stacks of documents, while his lawyer paced back and forth. "This is serious, Bradley," Mark Henderson, his attorney of 20 years, warned. "James Morrison isn't just making vague accusations. He claims to have documents showing that your father manipulated property values during the development of Palm Crest Gardens." Bradley loosened his tie, feeling suffocated. That project was 15 years ago. Why is he bringing this up now? "Because of the viral golf video. You're vulnerable right now, and Morrison smells blood in the water." The doorbell rang and Bradley heard familiar footsteps in the hallway. Leona had come to work despite everything. "I'll get started on the usual morning routine," she called out, her voice carrying to his office. Bradley turned to his lawyer. "Give me a minute." He found Leona in the kitchen, already preparing coffee. "You didn't have to come back." "I know," she said simply, "but running away isn't my style. Besides, you look like you could use some help." Before Bradley could respond, Catherine burst into the kitchen, her face flushed with anger. "Bradley, have you seen the morning paper? Morrison is claiming that Dad bribed city officials. This could ruin everything we've built." Leona quietly slipped out of the kitchen, but not before noticing how Bradley's shoulders slumped at his sister's words. For all his faults, she knew he truly cared about his family's legacy. Later that morning, Eleanor called an emergency meeting at her office. Bradley, Catherine, and surprisingly, Leona were all invited. "This isn't just about the Whitmore family anymore," Elena explained. "If these allegations are true, it could affect hundreds of families in Palm Crest Gardens. We need to get ahead of this." "But why is Leona here?" Catherine asked, not unkindly. "Because people trust her," Elena said. "After that golf video went viral, she's become a symbol of standing up to privilege. We need her help." Bradley looked at Leona with new eyes. The woman he'd tried to humiliate could now be his family's best hope for salvation. Just then, Bradley's phone buzzed. It was a text from James Morrison. "Meet me at the old country club, come alone. 1 hour. Bradley showed the message to the others. "It's obviously a trap," Catherine said. "I'll go with you," Leona offered, surprising everyone. "He won't expect that. At the country club, Morrison was waiting by the same hole where Leona had beaten Bradley just days ago. His smile was cold when he saw them approach together. Well, the mighty Bradley Whitmore bringing his housekeeper for protection? How the mighty have fallen. What do you want, James? Bradley demanded. Morrison pulled out a thick envelope. These documents show everything your father did. The bribes, the fraud, everything. But I'm willing to make them disappear. For a price. How much? Oh, it's not money I want, Morrison smiled. I want you to publicly resign from your family's company. Admit to everything. Let your reputation be destroyed. Bradley felt the blood drain from his face. The company wasn't just a business. It was his father's legacy, his family's future. But before he could respond, Leona stepped forward. Mr. Morrison, did you know I used to work here? Morrison looked confused by the change in subject. What? 15 years ago, when Palm Crest Gardens was being built. I was here carrying bags, cleaning clubs, and I remember some interesting conversations I overheard, including one about you trying to sabotage the project because you'd lost the bid. Now it was Morrison's turn to pale. You're bluffing. The old groundskeeper, Joe, he kept a diary, wrote down everything he saw and heard on this course. Interesting reading. Leona's voice was calm, but her eyes were steel. Would you like me to tell everyone what's in those pages? Morrison's hands started to shake. You're lying. You couldn't have. Try me, Leona challenged. Release those documents, and I'll release Joe's diary. Let's see who the public believes. The bitter businessman with a grudge, or the honest working woman who's never had a reason to lie. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Morrison crumpled the envelope in his hands. This isn't over, he snarled, before storming away. Bradley stared at Leona in amazement. Is there really a diary? Joe never wrote anything down, Leona admitted, but Morrison didn't know that. Sometimes the truth isn't about what you have, it's about what people believe you have. Bradley felt laughter bubble up in his chest, real, genuine laughter for the first time in days. You're incredible, you know that? Back at Elena's office, when they shared what had happened, Catherine hugged Leona impulsively. How you saved our family's reputation? Maybe, Leona cautioned, but Morrison won't give up easily, and there might be some truth in those allegations about your father. Bradley nodded slowly. You're right. It's time we looked into exactly what Dad did. No more hiding from the truth. That evening, as Bradley walked Leona to her car, something had changed between them. The power dynamic that had defined their relationship was gone, replaced by something more complicated and potentially more meaningful. Why did you help me? He asked. After everything I've done. Because I saw something in you that day on the golf course, Leona replied. When you lost, when all your defenses came down, I saw someone worth saving. Bradley reached for her hand, then stopped himself. I don't deserve your forgiveness. Probably not, Leona agreed with a small smile. But deserving something and needing it are two different things. As she drove away, Bradley stood in his driveway, watching her taillights disappear. His phone buzzed again. Another text from Morrison. You think you've won? Wait until tomorrow's paper. Inside his house, Bradley looked at the family photos on the wall, especially the one of his father breaking ground on Palm Crest Gardens. What secrets had the great Charles Whitmore taken to his grave? And how would those secrets affect not just his family's future, but his growing feelings for the remarkable woman who just saved them all? The night settled over Palm Crest, but for Bradley and Leona, sleep would not come easily. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new revelations, and perhaps new feelings that neither of them was quite ready to face. The morning paper hit Bradley's driveway with the weight of a bomb. The headline made his heart stop. Charles Whitmore's secret daughter comes forward. Below was a photo of a young woman who looked remarkably like his sister Catherine. Bradley's hands shook as he read the article. According to the story, Rachel Martinez was Charles Whitmore's illegitimate daughter from an affair with one of his secretaries 28 years ago. She had documents, photos, and DNA test results to prove it. Did you know about this? Catherine demanded, bursting into his house still in her pajamas. Her mascara was smeared from crying. Did Dad ever say anything? Of course not, Bradley said, still staring at the photo. But look at her, Kathy. She has Mom's eyes. Leona arrived for work to find the siblings sitting in stunned silence at the kitchen table. Without a word, she started making coffee and breakfast, giving them space to process the news. Morrison must have found her, Bradley said finally. This is his revenge. Actually, Leona spoke up softly, I remember her mother, Maria Martinez. She worked at the country club too before becoming your father's secretary. She quit suddenly and moved away. Now I understand why. The doorbell rang. Eleanor rushed in looking worried. Have you seen her interview? She's on Good Morning America right now. They turned on the TV to see Rachel Martinez, poised and articulate, telling her story. I don't want to hurt the Whitmore family, she was saying. I just want acknowledgement, and maybe a chance to know my siblings. Catherine burst into fresh tears. Bradley put his arm around her, but his eyes met Leona's across the room. She gave him an encouraging nod. We need to talk to her, Bradley decided. Not through lawyers or the media, face to face. I'll help arrange it, Elena offered. My house, neutral ground. Later that afternoon, Bradley and Catherine sat in Elena's living room waiting. Leona had come along at their request, her steady presence helping to calm their nerves. When Rachel walked in, the resemblance to Catherine was even more striking in person. She looked just as nervous as they did. I'm sorry it had to come out this way, Rachel said, her voice trembling. But James Morrison found me last month. He threatened to expose everything himself if I didn't come forward. Did he pay you? Bradley asked bluntly. He tried, I refused. Rachel met his eyes. I don't want money. I had a good life with my mom. She never asked your father for anything. But when I saw that golf tournament video, she turned to Leona. Watching you stand up to him, it gave me courage. Made me think maybe it was time for the truth to come out. Catherine stood up suddenly. I need some air. She rushed out to Elena's garden. I'll go check on her, Elena said, following her friend. Left alone with Rachel, Bradley struggled with his emotions. Why now? Why not when Dad was alive? Mom made me promise to wait. She said he had his reasons for keeping us a secret, but she died last year and Rachel's composure cracked. I just wanted to know my family. Leona, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. Sometimes the hardest truths are the ones that set us free. Bradley looked at her, remembering how she'd forced him to face his own truths on the golf course. You're right, he turned to Rachel. What happened with our father, that's on him, not you, your family, if you want to be. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. Really? Really? Catherine said from the doorway. She'd come back in, her eyes red but her voice steady. But no more secrets, no more surprises. Actually, Rachel hesitated. There is one more thing. I'm pregnant. You're going to be an aunt and uncle. The room fell silent. Then Catherine gave a watery laugh. Well, I always wanted to be an aunt. As the sisters hugged, Bradley stepped out onto Elena's patio, overwhelmed. Leona followed him. You did good in there, she said softly. I keep thinking about my father, Bradley admitted. All those years of acting superior, looking down on everyone, and he had this secret eating away at him. Maybe that's why he was so hard on everyone, including you. Bradley turned to her. You know what scares me? I was becoming just like him. Until you came along and showed me another way. Their eyes met, and for a moment the air between them crackled with unspoken feelings. But before either could speak, Bradley's phone rang. It was his lawyer. Morrison's not done, Mark Henderson said grimly. He's calling a press conference tomorrow. Says he has proof that Charles Whitmore not only bribed officials, but also embezzled money from his own charity foundation. Bradley felt the ground shifting under his feet again. The foundation? But that would destroy everything, the youth sports program, all our charitable works. He looked through the window at Catherine and Rachel, now looking at baby photos on Rachel's phone, while Eleanor watched with a smile. Then he looked at Leona, who had somehow become his moral compass in this storm. What do I do? He asked her. How do I protect them? Maybe it's time to stop protecting and start revealing, Leona suggested. Your father kept secrets to protect his image. Look where that led. Maybe the truth, as ugly as it might be, is better than more lies. Bradley knew she was right, but the truth could cost his family everything they'd built. And now, with a new sister and a baby on the way, the stakes were even higher. As the sun set over Palm Crest, Bradley Whitmore faced the biggest decision of his life. The man who had once cared only about appearances now had to choose between protecting his father's legacy and living up to the person Leona believed he could be. In Elena's garden, surrounded by blooming roses, Bradley reached for Leona's hand. This time, he didn't stop himself, and this time she didn't pull away. Whatever happens tomorrow, he said softly, I'm glad you're here. The warmth of her hand in his gave him strength, but also terrified him. Because now he had one more thing to lose, his growing feelings for a woman who had every reason to walk away, but somehow kept choosing to stay. The morning of Morrison's press conference dawned bright and clear, but Bradley hadn't slept all night. He sat in his home office, surrounded by old financial records his father had left behind. The more he dug, the worse things looked. "You've been up all night," Leona said from the doorway, holding 2 cups of coffee. She'd come in early, knowing he would need support today. "I found something," Bradley said, his voice rough. "Dad didn't just bribe officials for Palm Crest Gardens. He took money from the foundation to do it. Millions of dollars." Leona set the coffee down and looked at the documents. "What are you going to do?" Before Bradley could answer, Catherine arrived with Rachel. Both sisters looked worried. "Morrison's press conference is in 2 hours," Catherine said. "Our PR team wants to know our strategy." Bradley looked at the 3 women in front of him. His sister, his newly discovered sister, and Leona, who had become something he couldn't quite define yet. He thought about his father, about all the secrets and lies. "I'm going to tell the truth," he said finally. "All of it." "Bradley, no," Catherine protested. "You'll destroy everything." "Everything's already destroyed, Kathy. We just haven't admitted it yet." Rachel stepped forward. "Let me help. I'll stand with you. Show people that we're facing this as a family." Elena called just then. "Bradley, you need to see this. Morrison is already talking to reporters outside the venue. He's calling it the biggest charity fraud in Palm Crest history." Bradley straightened his tie, decision made. "I'm going to beat him to it. Call a press conference at our headquarters. Right now, before his." An hour later, the Whitmore Industries headquarters was packed with reporters. Bradley stood at the podium, his family behind him, Leona watching from the side. "My father, Charles Whitmore, built this company from nothing," Bradley began. "He created jobs, helped build this community, but he also made terrible mistakes. Mistakes I'm here to acknowledge today." The room fell silent as Bradley laid out everything. The bribes, the embezzlement, the cover-up. He explained how the foundation money had been used to secure permits and silence officials. "But the greatest injustice," he continued, his voice steady, "was to my sister Rachel. Our father's fear of scandal kept her hidden, denied her the family she deserved. That ends today." Catherine and Rachel stepped forward holding hands. The reporters went wild with questions. "What happens to the foundation?" someone shouted. "I'm stepping down as CEO," Bradley announced, causing gasps throughout the room. "Catherine and Rachel will take over joint leadership. Their first task will be to repay every dollar our father took with interest. I'll be selling my personal assets to help make that happen." "And what about you?" another reporter asked. Bradley looked at Leona, drawing strength from her presence. "I'm going to do what I should have done long ago. Earn my place in this community instead of taking it for granted." As the questions continued, James Morrison burst into the room, face red with anger. "This is a trick," he shouted. "They're trying to spin the story." "No, James," Bradley said calmly. "We're trying to fix what's broken, something you wouldn't understand." After the press conference, Bradley's lawyer looked shell-shocked. "You'll lose everything," Mark warned. "The mansion, the cars, your position in society." "Good," Bradley said. "Maybe it's time I learned who I am without all that." Later that evening, Bradley sat on the front steps of his soon-to-be-sold mansion. Leona joined him, their shoulders touching slightly. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "Because of you," Bradley replied. "You showed me what real integrity looks like." "I should probably start looking for a new job," Leona said with a small smile, "since you won't be needing a housekeeper anymore." "Actually," Bradley turned to face her, "I was hoping you might consider a different position. The youth sports program still needs a director. Elena's already approved it. Full salary, benefits, everything you deserve." Leona's eyes widened, but after today's revelations, Elena's taking over the foundation's oversight. Everything will be transparent from now on, and she wants you to help rebuild its reputation. "And what about us?" Leona asked quietly. "With everything changing?" Bradley took her hand. "That's the one thing I'm sure about. Whatever happens next, I want to face it with you. Not as your employer, not as some rich guy who thought he was better than everyone else, just as me trying to be worthy of someone as extraordinary as you." Before Leona could respond, they heard cars pulling up. Catherine and Rachel had arrived with Elena and several boxes of pizza. "Family meeting," Catherine announced. "We're planning the foundation's future, and we need both of you." As they walked inside, Bradley kept hold of Leona's hand. The mansion didn't feel empty anymore. It was filled with the warmth of new beginnings and second chances. But in his office, Bradley's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You think confessing fixes everything. Wait until they learn what else your father was hiding. This isn't over." Bradley stared at the message, then deleted it. Whatever came next, he wouldn't face it alone. The truth had cost him his fortune, but given him something far more valuable, a real family, a chance at redemption, and maybe, just maybe, true love. Inside, he could hear laughter as Catherine and Rachel teased each other about baby names. Eleanor was outlining plans for the foundation's future, while Leona added wise suggestions about community involvement. The sun set on Palm Crest, casting long shadows across the mansion's manicured lawns. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but for now Bradley Whitmore felt truly rich for the first time in his life. The next week brought changes that no one in Palm Crest could have predicted. Bradley moved out of his mansion into a modest two-bedroom apartment. The local news showed footage of his luxury cars being sold at auction, and society columnists couldn't stop writing about his spectacular fall from grace. But it was the mysterious text message that kept him awake at night. What else could his father have been hiding? "You're brooding again," Leona said, bringing him coffee at his new office in the youth sports center. The space was tiny compared to his old executive suite, but somehow it felt more real. "I found another old file of Dad's," Bradley admitted. "There are references to something called Project Haven, but I can't figure out what it was." Before Leona could respond, Eleanor burst in. "We have a problem. The Heritage Club is pulling their funding from the youth program. They say they can't be associated with the Whitmore name anymore." "That's half our operating budget," Leona said, her face falling. "They had 20 kids signed up to start golf lessons next week." "I'll figure something out," Bradley promised, but his voice lacked conviction. His personal accounts were nearly drained from paying back the foundation's missing funds. Just then, Rachel waddled in, one hand on her growing baby bump. "Sorry to interrupt, but there's someone here you need to meet." She stepped aside to reveal an elderly man in a well-worn suit. "My name is George Parker," the man said. "I was your father's personal secretary for 30 years. Bradley stood up quickly. "But Dad's secretary was—" "Margaret Jones, yes, she handled his business affairs. I handled his private matters." George pulled out an old leather briefcase, including Project Haven. The room fell silent. George looked at each face before continuing. "Your father knew this day might come. He left instructions about what to do if his indiscretions ever came to light." "What kind of instructions?" Bradley asked. "There's another foundation," George explained, "set up in the Cayman Islands. Your father called it his insurance policy. He'd been secretly depositing money there for decades." Catherine, who had just arrived, gasped. "More hidden money? How much are we talking about?" "Enough to repay everything he took from the original foundation 10 times over," George said, "but he left strict conditions about how it could be used." He pulled out a thick envelope. "Everything's explained in here, but he was very clear. The money can only be accessed if his children work together to rebuild his legacy the right way." Bradley took the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a letter in his father's handwriting, along with bank documents and a small key. "Dear children," he read aloud, "if you're reading this, then my mistakes have finally caught up with our family. Project Haven was my attempt to make amends, even if I lacked the courage to do it while alive." Suddenly, James Morrison burst into the office. "So, the rumors are true. Another secret Whitmore fortune." He waved his phone triumphantly. "I just recorded everything. By tomorrow, everyone will know." "Go ahead," Bradley said calmly. "That's the difference between us, James. We're not hiding anymore." Morrison's face reddened. "You think playing noble will save you? Your father ruined my father with those bribes, destroyed our family business. And I'm truly sorry for that," Bradley said, "which is why I want you to join the foundation's board." Everyone stared at him in shock. "What?" Morrison sputtered. "Help us make it right," Bradley continued. "Not just for your family, but for everyone hurt by my father's actions. Be part of the solution." Morrison opened his mouth, then closed it again. For the first time, he seemed at a loss for words. "He's right," Rachel said, stepping forward. "Enough with the revenge. Let's focus on healing instead." Later that evening, Bradley and Leona walked through the youth center's empty playground. The equipment needed updating and the basketball court had cracks, but Bradley saw potential everywhere he looked. "You surprised me today," Leona said, "inviting Morrison to join the board. That was either brilliant or crazy." "I learned from the best," Bradley smiled, taking her hand. "You taught me that sometimes people just need a chance to be better than their past." Their faces drew closer, the moment feeling perfect. But before their lips could meet, Catherine came running out. "Bradley, you need to see what else was in Dad's letter. It's about Mum's death. It wasn't an accident." The color drained from Bradley's face. All these years, they'd believed their mother's car crash was just terrible luck. What other secrets was their father still revealing from beyond the grave? Inside his office, the letter lay open on his desk, its revelations threatening to shatter everything again. But this time, As Bradley felt his world tilting, Leona's hand found his. And this time he knew he wasn't facing the storm alone. The sun had set over Palm Crest, but light still burned in the youth center as an unlikely group of people, the Whitmore siblings, James Morrison, George Parker, Eleanor, and Leona, gathered around a letter that promised to change all their lives once again. In the parking lot, a car's headlights flashed twice. Another player in this complicated game was about to make their entrance. Because in Palm Crest, just when you think you know the whole story, another chapter begins. Bradley stared at his father's letter, reading the devastating words over and over. The night your mother died, she had discovered the truth about Palm Crest Gardens. She was on her way to the district attorney's office. I sent Marcus Thompson to stop her. He was only supposed to delay her, but things went terribly wrong. Marcus Thompson? Catherine whispered. Dad's head of security. He still lives in Palm Crest, Eleanor added. He runs a private security firm now. Leona squeezed Bradley's hand as he continued reading. I couldn't turn Marcus in without exposing everything. The guilt has haunted us both. The money in Project Haven came from selling my private island. I knew someday the truth would come out, and you would need it to make things right. Rachel sat down heavily, protectively touching her baby bump. So our father didn't just commit fraud, he was involved in... Don't say it, Catherine cut her off. We don't know for sure what happened that night. Yes, we do, Bradley said quietly. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Detective Rivera, this is Bradley Whitmore. I need to report a 20-year-old crime. The next morning, Palm Crest woke to shocking headlines. Marcus Thompson had been arrested, and the case of Elizabeth Whitmore's death was being reopened. The police were also investigating Charles Whitmore's role posthumously. Bradley sat in the youth center's office, trying to focus on paperwork, but his mind kept drifting to memories of his mother, her gentle smile, the way she always stood up for the underdog. She would be proud of you, Leona said softly from the doorway, standing up for the truth, no matter the cost. Would she? Bradley looked up, his eyes haunted. Our whole fortune was built on corruption and, worse, everything we're trying to save, maybe it deserves to fall apart. The money might be tainted, Leona agreed, but what you're doing with it now isn't. Those kids out there don't care about where the funding came from. They care that someone finally believes in them. Through the window they could see James Morrison teaching a group of children proper golf stance. After joining the foundation board, he'd surprised everyone by volunteering to coach. Eleanor rushed in, looking worried. The Heritage Club board is meeting right now. They're voting on whether to permanently cut all ties with any Whitmore-connected projects. Let them, Bradley said. We'll find another way. Actually, George Parker spoke up from where he'd been quietly organizing files. Project Haven might offer a solution. The account your father set up, it's significant enough to run the youth programs independently. No, Bradley said firmly. That money needs to go to the victims first. Starting with the Morrison family, and anyone else hurt by Dad's schemes. What about a compromise, Rachel suggested. She'd been reviewing the foundation's books, putting her business degree to use. We could split the funds, half for restitution, half for community programs. Catherine nodded thoughtfully. We could restructure everything. New name, new board, total transparency. Just then, a police car pulled up outside. Detective Rivera stepped out, looking grim. We found something at Marcus Thompson's house, she said when they gathered around. A recording from that night. She played it on her phone. Elizabeth Whitmore's voice filled the room. Charles has to be stopped. Those families in Palm Crest Gardens, they've invested their life savings in homes built on condemned land. When the truth comes out, the recording ended in screeching tires and a crash. Bradley gripped Leona's hand so hard it hurt. The land was condemned, but people have been living there for 20 years. The geological survey was faked, Detective Rivera explained, but recent tests show the area is dangerously unstable. The whole development should have never been built. How many homes are we talking about? Elena asked. Over 300 families, the detective replied. They'll all need to be relocated. Soon. Bradley looked at his sisters, then at Leona. Now we know what the Project Haven money is really for. But that's hundreds of millions of dollars, Catherine protested. Then we'll find more, Bradley said. We'll sell everything, leverage every contact. Those families trusted our name. We won't let them lose everything. James Morrison spoke up from the doorway. My company owns land on the other side of town. Better land. Maybe we can work something out. As they began discussing logistics, Bradley pulled Leona aside. I need to ask you something. Now? She looked surprised. Yes, now, when everything is falling apart, when we've hit rock bottom, now is exactly the right time. He took both her hands in his. Leona Ellis, will you marry me? The room fell silent. Everyone turned to stare. Bradley, Leona started. I know it seems crazy, he rushed on. I know I'm not the rich man I used to be. I know there are 100 reasons to say no, but I love you. You make me want to be better, to do better. Whatever comes next, I want to face it with you by my side. Before Leona could answer, Rachel suddenly gasped, clutching her stomach. The baby, she said. It's coming. Chaos erupted as everyone sprang into action. But as they helped Rachel to Elena's car, Leona pulled Bradley close and whispered something in his ear that made him break into a brilliant smile. As the sun set over Palm Crest, the Whitmore family, old and new members alike, gathered at the hospital, waiting for its newest addition. Outside, reporters clustered at the entrance, eager for updates about the arrests, the condemned housing development, and the rumors of Bradley Whitmore's impromptu proposal. But in the quiet of the waiting room, none of that seemed to matter, because sometimes, even in the darkest moments, life has a way of offering new beginnings. And sometimes the biggest acts of love come not from grand gestures or wealth, but from the simple courage to face the truth together. The hospital waiting room buzzed with tension as Rachel's labor progressed. Bradley paced back and forth, his proposal to Leona still hanging in the air. She had whispered, "Ask me again when all this is over," leaving him both hopeful and anxious. "Bradley," Eleanor called from the doorway, "the press is getting out of control downstairs. They're asking about Marcus Thompson's confession." Indeed, the former security chief had broken down under questioning, admitting to tampering with Elizabeth Whitmore's car that fateful night. The story was everywhere, along with news about the condemned housing development. Catherine was on her phone fielding calls from worried homeowners. "Yes, I understand your concerns. No, you won't lose your investment. The Whitmore Foundation will make this right." "How exactly are we going to do that?" Bradley asked when she hung up. "Actually," James Morrison stepped forward, "I've been working on a plan." He spread out some blueprints on a waiting room table. "My company's land can accommodate all 300 families, but we'll need to fast-track construction." Leona studied the plans. "The youth center could help. Many of our parents are in construction. If we coordinate with them..." A nurse burst in. "Mr. Whitmore? Your sister's asking for all of you." They hurried to Rachel's room where she lay breathing heavily through contractions. I want Mom's letter," she gasped. "What letter?" Catherine asked. George Parker pulled an envelope from his briefcase. "Your mother wrote this the day she died. It was in the Project Haven files." Rachel clutched the letter as another contraction hit. "Read it," she told Bradley. "Read it now, before this baby comes. We all need to hear it." Bradley's hands shook as he opened the yellowed envelope. "My dearest children, if you're reading this, then the truth about Palm Crest Gardens has finally come to light. I couldn't stay silent knowing that hundreds of families might lose everything. Your father built his empire on shortcuts and secrets, but you have the chance to rebuild it on truth and justice. Bradley, my passionate son, you remind me so much of your father, both the good and the bad. But you have my heart, and that will make all the difference. Catherine, my rock, your strength isn't in your name or your position, but in your unwavering spirit. Trust that spirit. And to the child I never knew, because yes, Charles, I knew about Maria's baby, I hope someday you'll find your way to this family. They'll need your fresh perspective and untainted wisdom. The money your father set aside, he thinks it's insurance against scandal, but I see it differently. It's your chance to right the wrongs, to show Palm Crest what the Whitmore name can really stand for. I'm going to the authorities tonight because it's the right thing to do. I pray I'll be there to help you through what comes next. But if I'm not, remember this. Our legacy isn't in our bank accounts or our social standing. It's in the lives we touch and the good we choose to do. All my love, Mom." Rachel's sobs turned into a scream as another contraction gripped her. The doctor rushed in. It was time. "Wait," Rachel grabbed Leona's hand. "Stay. Your family too." The next hour was a blur of activity, until finally, a new cry pierced the air. "It's a girl," the doctor announced. "Elizabeth," Rachel said softly, cradling her daughter. "After our mother." As little Elizabeth was passed around the room, Bradley watched Leona gently rocking his newborn niece. Their eyes met over the baby's head, and he saw his future clearly for the first time. But the moment was interrupted by Elena's urgent whisper, "Bradley, you need to see this." On her tablet was breaking news. Geological sensors in Palm Crest Gardens were showing critical readings. The ground was shifting faster than expected. They had weeks, not months, to evacuate everyone. "We need to move now," James Morrison said, studying the data. "I can have construction crews working round the clock, but we'll need temporary housing in the meantime." "The Palm Crest Hotel," Catherine suggested. "We still own it. We can house everyone there during construction." Bradley looked around the room, at his sisters, at James Morrison, who had moved from enemy to ally, at Eleanor, who had stood by them through everything, at George Parker, who had helped unveil the truth, and finally at Leona, still holding baby Elizabeth. "Mom was right," he said. "Our legacy isn't in what we own, it's in what we do." He turned to Morrison. "How fast can you get those crews started?" "Tonight," Morrison replied, "but it'll take every penny of Project Haven to fund it." "Then we'll find more," Leona said firmly. "The community will help. These are our neighbors we're talking about." Baby Elizabeth chose that moment to let out a mighty cry, as if adding her own determination to the mix. Outside the hospital windows, the sun was rising over Palm Crest. News vans still crowded the parking lot, and worried homeowners were already gathering at the development, but something had shifted in the air. The truth was finally out, all of it, and with it came the chance for real healing. Bradley took Leona aside as the others fussed over the baby. "About what I asked earlier." She pressed a finger to his lips. "First, we save those families. Then," her eyes sparkled, "then you can ask me properly. Maybe somewhere with a golf course involved." Bradley laughed, feeling lighter despite the challenges ahead, because sometimes the hardest roads lead to the best destinations, and sometimes the biggest losses make room for the greatest gains. But in the hospital room's corner, George Parker quietly made a phone call. "Yes," he whispered. "They found Elizabeth's letter. Soon they'll start looking deeper into Project Haven." "Yes, I understand. I'll make sure they never find the rest of Charles's files." The morning light caught the tears in his eyes as he watched the happy family scene. Some secrets, he knew, were still better left buried, for now. 6 months had passed since baby Elizabeth's birth, and Palm Crest had changed in ways nobody could have predicted. The Palm Crest Hotel had become a temporary home for 300 families, its luxury suites and ballrooms transformed into a close-knit community. Construction on the new development, now called Haven Heights, was proceeding ahead of schedule. Bradley stood at the construction site, watching dozens of workers, many of them residents of the condemned development, building new homes. James Morrison walked up beside him, hard hat in hand. "The first section will be ready next week," Morrison said. 50 families can move in before Christmas. "Thanks to you," Bradley replied. "I never thought I'd say this, but we couldn't have done this without you." Morrison smiled slightly. "Well, I never thought I'd be partners with a Whitmore, so I guess we're even." Their partnership had become the talk of Palm Crest, former enemies working together to save their community. The sight of Morrison teaching golf to underprivileged kids at the youth center no longer turned heads. At the Palm Crest Hotel, Catherine and Rachel had transformed the grand ballroom into a community center. Today, they were organizing a town hall meeting to update residents on the construction progress. Rachel's daughter Elizabeth, now 6 months old, slept peacefully in a portable crib while her mother and aunt handled the preparations. "Has anyone seen George Parker?" Catherine asked, shuffling through some papers. "He was supposed to bring the latest Project Haven financial reports." Nobody had seen the elderly secretary for 3 days. His apartment was empty, and his phone went straight to voicemail. Eleanor burst into the ballroom, waving a newspaper. "You need to see this. They found old files in Charles Whitmore's summer house. There's evidence that Project Haven wasn't just about making amends. It was laundering money from other illegal developments across the state. That's why George disappeared," Bradley realized. He knew we were getting close to the whole truth. But before they could discuss it further, Leona called everyone outside. The hotel's sprawling garden had been transformed. White flowers lined a path leading to a simple archway, and familiar faces filled the rows of chairs. "What's going on?" Bradley asked, though his heart already knew. Leona stepped forward, radiant in a simple white dress. "You asked me a question 6 months ago. I think it's time I gave you my answer." "But we haven't found George," Bradley protested weakly. "The Project Haven money might be tainted." "I don't care about any of that," Leona said. "I fell in love with you when you had nothing but your determination to change, to be better. That's worth more than all the money in the world." Catherine stepped forward with baby Elizabeth, now awake and wearing a tiny flower girl dress. We've all learned what really matters, she said. Mom would want us to be happy. Bradley looked around at the gathered crowd. Residents from the condemned development, kids from the youth center, his sisters, James Morrison, Eleanor, all the people whose lives had become intertwined with his. "Well?" Leona asked softly. "Will you marry me, Bradley Whitmore?" Bradley laughed through tears. "I thought I was supposed to ask you." "You did. 6 months ago. I figured it was my turn." The impromptu wedding became a symbol of Palm Crest's rebirth. As Bradley and Leona exchanged vows, Catherine read their mother's letter aloud again. Its words about legacy and doing good had become the foundation's new mission statement. Later, at the reception, James Morrison clinked his glass for attention. "I have an announcement," he said. "My company is donating additional land. We're going to build a real community center with sports facilities, classrooms, everything the youth program needs." The crowd cheered, but Elena noticed Bradley looking thoughtful. "What is it?" "I just got a text," he said, "from George Parker. All it says is, check your father's old golf locker." The next morning, Bradley and Leona drove to the country club. In Charles Whitmore's abandoned locker, they found a final letter. "Son, by now you know most of my secrets. The last one is this. Project Haven wasn't just my creation. Your mother started it, years before her death. The dirty money was her way of forcing me to face my sins eventually. She knew that someday you would choose to make things right." She also knew about Leona. The day before she died, she saw her practicing golf with old Joe. "That girl," she told me, "will either humble our son or save him. Maybe both." She was right, as always. Dad. Tears fell on the letter as Bradley read it. Leona held him close, understanding that some wounds take generations to heal. 1 year later, Haven Heights was complete. The condemned development had been safely demolished, and 300 families had new homes. The youth center, now called the Elizabeth Whitmore Community Center, was filled with the sounds of children learning and playing. Bradley and Leona lived in a modest house near the center, where they both worked. Catherine and Rachel ran the foundation with total transparency, their mother's letter framed on the wall. Baby Elizabeth took her first steps in the center's daycare, surrounded by children from all walks of life. James Morrison became the foundation's most ardent supporter, though he still occasionally grumbled about Bradley's golf swing. The Palmcrest Hotel returned to normal operations, but with a new policy of hosting community events and providing emergency housing to families in need. George Parker was never found, but his disappearance served as a reminder that some parts of the past are better left behind. On their first wedding anniversary, Bradley and Leona stood on the golf course where their story began. "Do you ever miss it?" she asked. "The mansion, the cars, the power." Bradley watched a group of kids practicing their swings, remembering how his own pride had nearly cost him everything that mattered. "No," he said, pulling her close. "I have something better now. I have the truth, and I have you." As the sun set over Palm Crest, Bradley and Leona walked hand in hand toward home. Behind them, the golf course had become a place where anyone could learn to play, where status didn't matter, and where second chances were always possible. Because sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about wealth or power or social standing. Sometimes they're about having the courage to change, the strength to face the truth, and the wisdom to recognize that real happiness comes not from what we have, but from who we choose to become. And in Palmcrest, that lesson would be passed down for generations to come.